I was standing in the kitchen at 2 a.m., holding my wife's phone with a message on the screen that read, "Delete this before he sees it," and my hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped it on the tile floor. 3 hours earlier, we'd been eating dinner like everything was normal, laughing about something stupid on TV, and now I was staring at proof that my entire marriage had been a performance. My name is Marcus. I'm 34, and until that night I would have told anyone who asked that Rachel and I had a good marriage. Not perfect, but solid. 6 years together, 3 of them married, a mortgage, a golden retriever named Biscuit who slept between us every night. She worked as an event coordinator downtown, long hours sometimes, client dinners that ran late, and I never questioned it because I trusted her completely. That's the part that kills me now, looking back, how completely I trusted her. It started 3 weeks earlier with something so small I almost laughed at myself for noticing it. She started sleeping with her phone face down on the nightstand, instead of just leaving it there like normal. Then she started taking it into the bathroom when she showered, which she'd never done before in 6 years. Then came the late nights, always with a reasonable explanation, always delivered with that easy smile that used to make my chest feel warm, and now just made my stomach twist. The night everything broke open started innocently enough. Rachel had gone to bed early, complaining of a headache, and I was downstairs finishing up some work emails when Biscuit started scratching at the basement door, whining like something was wrong. I went down to check on him and found her phone, the one she thought she'd left charging upstairs, sitting on the workbench next to my old tool set. I don't know why she brought it down there. I don't know what she was doing, but it was unlocked, screen still glowing, and there was a text conversation open that I wasn't supposed to see. The contact name was saved as Jim. The messages weren't from a woman named Jen. The last message, sent 40 minutes earlier while she was supposedly upstairs asleep with a headache, said, "He's never going to find out. Stop panicking. I've got this handled." And above that, scrolling up through weeks of conversation, I found things that made my vision actually blur at the edges. Hotel confirmations. A joke about his stupid work trip being perfect timing. A message from 3 days ago, the same day she'd told me she was staying late for a corporate gala, that just said, "Counting down the hours until I'm inside you again." I sat down on the concrete basement floor because my legs stopped working correctly. Biscuit came and put his head in my lap, like he understood something terrible was happening in his house. I scrolled further back, my thumb moving on its own, finding a name I recognized immediately because I saw him at every family barbecue, every holiday, every birthday party for the last 4 years. The messages were with my older brother's best friend, a man who'd sat at our wedding, a man who'd helped me move furniture into this house, a man Rachel called practically family. I heard the floorboards creak upstairs. She was awake, and I had exactly the time it took her to walk down those stairs to decide whether I was going to confront her right now with shaking hands and a broken heart, or whether I was going to put the phone back exactly where I found it and start digging for the truth she clearly thought she'd buried so well. I heard her footsteps hit the 4th stair, the one that always creaks, and something cold and clear took over my body that I didn't know I had in me. I wiped the phone screen against my shirt, set it back on the workbench at the exact angle I'd found it, and grabbed a random screwdriver off the pegboard just as the basement door opened. "Babe, what are you doing down here at this hour?" she said, rubbing her eyes, looking every bit like a woman who'd been sleeping upstairs with a headache. I told her Biscuit had been whining, and I came to check the water heater. She believed me instantly, because why wouldn't she? I'd never given her a reason to think I was capable of lying to her face, and now here I was, doing exactly that, badly needing to know how deep this went before I let her know that I knew anything at all. She went back to bed like nothing happened, and I sat in the dark garage for another hour with my laptop, doing something I never thought I'd do to my own wife. I pulled up our shared credit card statements, and once I actually looked, instead of trusting, the pattern was so obvious I felt sick that I'd missed it for months. A hotel, 40 minutes outside the city, charged 3 separate times, always on days she told me she had vendor meetings. A jewelry store charge for $220 in March, that she never mentioned receiving anything from. A charge from a florist on our anniversary. The same week I'd bought her a bracelet, and she'd never given me flowers or told me about any. I found the calendar app next, the shared one we used for scheduling date nights and vet appointments for Biscuit, and there it was, an event from 8 months ago labeled simply R, with no other details, recurring every other Thursday like clockwork. 8 months. Not 3 weeks like I'd assumed from the recent nervous behavior, but 8 entire months of Thursdays where I thought she was at spin class. The name Dale kept surfacing in my head like a slow-motion car crash. Dale Whitfield, my brother Tommy's best friend since college, the guy who'd given a toast at our wedding about how he'd never seen two people more perfect for each other. The guy who came over for Sunday football and drank my beer and asked me about my job like he actually cared. I thought about the last time I'd seen him, 3 weeks ago at Tommy's place, how he'd hugged Rachel a beat too long, and I'd thought nothing of it because why would I ever think anything of it? At 4 a.m., I finally went upstairs and lay down next to her, my wife of 3 years, breathing evenly in her sleep, completely unaware that I now knew her Thursdays belonged to another man. I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling and made a decision that would change everything. I wasn't going to confront her with suspicion. I was going to get proof so complete, so undeniable, that she couldn't gaslight her way out of it. Because I already knew, somewhere in my gut, that she would try. What I didn't know yet was that Dale wasn't the only name I should have been worried about, and that the real devastation was still 3 weeks away from finding me. The next morning, I watched her make coffee like she did every single day, humming along to the radio, and I genuinely didn't recognize the woman standing in my kitchen anymore. I decided to test the water carefully, mentioning offhand that Tommy had invited us to a barbecue that weekend, and Dale would probably be there. Her hand paused for just a fraction of a second over the coffee pot. So brief, I would have missed it if I hadn't been watching for exactly that kind of tell. And then she said, too casually, "Oh, that's fun. I haven't seen Dale in forever." I hadn't said anything about it being unusual. I hadn't given her any reason to defend the timeline. She'd volunteered the lie all on her own. I spent the next several days becoming someone I didn't recognize, a quiet detective living inside my own marriage. I installed a tracking app on my own phone that could show me her location through Find My Friends, which she'd agreed to years ago as a safety thing and clearly forgotten still existed. Thursday came, and at 11 in the morning, her little blue dot left her office building and drove, not to a client meeting, but to a Marriott 40 minutes outside downtown, the exact hotel from the credit card statements. It stayed there for 2 hours and 11 minutes before returning to the office. That night I finally said something, carefully, testing the edges of what she'd admit. I asked how her day went. She said fine, busy, had a long lunch meeting with a difficult client. I asked which client. She named someone real, someone from her actual company roster, and said it so smoothly, so without hesitation, that for one horrible second, I almost believed her over my own eyes. That's when I understood what I was actually dealing with. This wasn't a woman who'd made a mistake and was drowning in guilt. This was a woman who had built an entire second life with backup answers ready for every question, rehearsed and comfortable in her own deception. I pushed a little further, mentioning I'd maybe swing by her office sometime to surprise her with lunch. Her face changed for just a moment, something flickering behind her eyes that looked almost like fear, before she smiled and said, "That would be so sweet, but her schedule was insane this month, maybe next month instead." Next month. She was already planning how to keep me at arm's length for the foreseeable future, already building the next set of excuses before I'd even asked for them. I went to bed that night next to her, and for the first time in our marriage, I found myself studying her sleeping face like a stranger's, trying to find the version of her I thought I knew, the one who cried at our wedding and said she'd never felt safer with anyone. That woman felt like a character now, a role Rachel had played convincingly enough to fool me for years. I didn't know yet that the hotel and Dale were only the surface of something so much bigger, something that involved people I never would have suspected in a million years, something that would make even this discovery feel small by comparison. 2 days later, I did something I'm not proud of, but I needed the truth more than I needed to respect her privacy anymore. So I went into her old laptop, the one she barely used since getting a work one, and found her personal email still logged in from months ago. What I found there didn't just break my heart. It rewrote the entire history of my marriage in front of my eyes. There were messages between her and Dale dating back over 2 years. Not 8 months like the calendar suggested, 2 full years, which meant this had started while we were still newlyweds. While I was planning our first anniversary trip to Portugal that she'd cried happy tears over. Buried in an email thread from 14 months ago, I found something that made the floor tilt underneath me. Rachel had written to Dale, "I know this is insane, but I actually love you. I think I've loved you since before I married him. I just didn't let myself admit it." Before I married him. She had walked down the aisle toward me, already in love with someone else, already choosing me as some kind of consolation prize, while her real feelings belonged to my brother's best friend. I confronted her that Friday night, finally, unable to hold the weight of it alone anymore. I laid out everything calmly, the hotel records, the calendar entries, the email, watching her face for the moment the mask would finally crack. Instead, she went cold in a way I'd never seen, arms crossed, voice flat. "So you've been spying on me, going through my private things. Do you have any idea how violated I feel right now?" She actually said that. She actually tried to make herself the victim of my discovery, instead of the architect of her own betrayal. When I pushed back, showing her the actual email with Dale's name in it, she pivoted instantly to a different tactic, tears now, voice shaking. "It was one weak moment. I've been so lonely. You work so much, you never see me anymore. This is partly on you, too." 1 weak moment. 2 years and a hotel loyalty program worth of weak moments. I told her I knew about the 2-year timeline, that I'd read the email about loving him before our wedding, and something in her face shifted again, calculating this time, deciding which version of the truth might still save her. "You're twisting my words," she said, standing up now, raising her voice like I was the one attacking her. "I was scared and confused before the wedding. That doesn't mean anything happened. You're taking one sentence and turning it into some whole affair timeline in your head." She was lying to my face about her own written words. Words I had photographed on my phone not 20 minutes earlier, and doing it with such conviction that for one disorienting moment, I actually questioned my own memory of what I'd read. That's when Biscuit started barking at the front door, and through the window I saw a car I recognized pulling into our driveway at 9 at night, uninvited, and Rachel's face went from defensive fury to genuine, bone-deep panic in less than a second. It was Dale's car in our driveway, and Rachel practically threw herself in front of the door like she could physically stop this collision from happening, hissing at me under her breath that I needed to stay calm and not make a scene. I laughed. Actually laughed. A horrible, broken sound I didn't recognize coming out of my own throat, because she was worried about a scene while standing in the wreckage of the scene she'd spent 2 years building. I opened the door myself before she could stop me, and Dale stood there on my porch holding a 6-pack, like this was any other Friday night visit, his easy smile collapsing the second he saw my face. "Marcus, hey man, I was just in the neighborhood," he started, and I watched Rachel's eyes dart to him with a look of pure warning that told me everything, that told me they'd communicated today, that he'd come here on purpose, maybe because she'd texted him in a panic sometime after I mentioned the barbecue. I asked him straight out, no preamble, if he was sleeping with my wife. The silence that followed lasted 3 full seconds, and in relationships built on lies, 3 seconds of silence is its own confession. Rachel jumped in first, of course, spinning toward damage control with impressive speed. "Marcus, don't do this. Don't embarrass yourself in front of Dale. You're not thinking clearly. You've been under so much stress at work." She was trying to make me look unstable in front of the very man destroying our marriage, trying to recast 2 years of documented betrayal as one husband's paranoid breakdown. Dale, to his credit, or maybe just his cowardice, didn't deny it outright. He just stood there looking sick, looking at Rachel instead of me, waiting for her to tell him what to say. That silence broke something loose in her. She turned on me with a viciousness I'd never seen in 3 years of marriage, years I'd thought I knew this woman completely. "You want to know why this happened? Because you're boring, Marcus. Because you stopped trying the moment we got married. Because I felt invisible in my own house. Because Dale actually sees me." She was screaming it now, right there on our porch, loud enough that our neighbor's porch light flicked on. She wasn't defending herself anymore. She was attacking me, like my failure to read her mind justified 2 years of calculated deception with someone from my own family. Dale finally spoke, quietly, telling her maybe they should just tell him everything, and the look she gave him could have stopped traffic. "There is no everything, Dale, don't you dare," she snapped, and I understood in that instant that there was more, that whatever I'd already uncovered was still only a piece of something larger she was still actively protecting. I asked her directly what else there was to tell. Dale looked at me with something that almost resembled pity, opened his mouth to answer, and Rachel screamed for him to leave, right now, immediately, and slammed the door in his face before he could say another word. The door had barely clicked shut before Rachel spun around, chest heaving, and I could see her rebuilding her composure in real time, deciding how much damage control this required. I told her plainly that I wasn't letting this go, that Dale had been about to say something, and I deserved to hear it, whatever it was. She tried the tears again, softer this time, reaching for my arm, saying she just wanted to fix things, that she'd made a horrible mistake but she still loved me, that whatever Dale was going to say didn't matter because it was ancient history and bringing it up would only hurt me more. The fact that she was now protecting me from information, rather than denying it existed, told me it was worse than anything so far. I called Dale directly that night, after Rachel had locked herself in the bathroom claiming she needed to shower off this whole terrible night, which felt like exactly the kind of thing a person says when they need 5 private minutes to make a phone call of their own. Dale picked up on the second ring, sounding rattled. And when I told him Rachel wasn't in the room, he exhaled like a man finally putting down something heavy. "Man, I never wanted any of this. I told her a year ago we needed to stop, but there's something you need to know that has nothing to do with me and her." He told me that Tommy knew, my own brother, who I'd called every week since we were kids, who I'd asked to be my best man, had known about Rachel and Dale for over a year and had said nothing, because apparently Rachel had convinced Tommy that telling me would destroy the family and that she was handling it and ending things soon. Tommy had chosen his best friend's secret and his sister-in-law's comfort over telling his own brother that his marriage was a lie. For over a year, sitting across from me at Sunday dinners with that knowledge sitting silently between us like a landmine. I hung up the phone and sat alone in the dark living room while the shower ran upstairs, feeling something crack open in my chest that had nothing to do with Rachel anymore. Tommy had held my hand at our father's funeral 2 years ago. Tommy had helped me pick out Rachel's wedding ring. Tommy had known this whole time and let me walk through my own life smiling at a woman who was destroying it. Let me toast to our marriage at family holidays. Let me believe that at least my brother was someone I could trust completely, even when everyone else in this story had turned into a stranger. When Rachel came downstairs in a bathrobe, red-eyed and fragile-looking in a way I now recognized as performance, she asked softly if we could talk about how to move forward. I asked her instead, very calmly, how long Tommy had known. The color drained from her face so fast I thought she might actually faint, and for the first time all night, she didn't have a rehearsed answer ready. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, but her voice cracked on the last word, and we both knew the lie had already failed before it left her mouth. I told her I'd spoken to Dale, that I knew Tommy had been aware for over a year, and something in her finally, truly broke. Not into tears this time, but into something colder and more honest than anything she'd shown me all night. She sat down heavily on the couch and said, "Fine. You want the truth? Tommy found out because he walked in on us at his own cabin 14 months ago. And instead of telling you, he made a deal with me." A deal. I asked her what kind of deal a person makes to keep their brother's marriage a lie. She looked at me with an expression I can only describe as exhausted, like she was relieved to finally stop performing. Tommy's been struggling financially for 2 years, Marcus. The restaurant investment that went bad, remember? I told him if he kept quiet, I'd keep helping him with money from my family trust. The one you don't know the full details of, because your parents never liked talking numbers with you. I've been paying your own brother $800 a month for over a year to stay quiet about me and Dale. I felt something in me go completely numb, a kind of shock past shock. Because this wasn't just an affair anymore. This was an entire architecture of lies involving money, involving my brother's silence being purchased like a business transaction, involving a trust fund I apparently didn't even know the details of after 3 years of marriage. I asked her what else I didn't know, my voice sounding very far away even to myself. She looked at me for a long moment, weighing something, and then said the sentence that changed everything I thought I understood about my entire marriage. Marcus, I need you to understand something before you say anything else. Dale and I didn't start 2 years ago. We started 4 years ago, before you and I were even engaged. I was still seeing him casually when you proposed, and I said yes to you because your family had stability mine never had, and because Dale wasn't ready to commit to anything real back then. I married you because it made sense, not because I stopped loving him. I never stopped. The room went silent except for the sound of Biscuit's nails clicking anxiously on the hardwood floor, sensing something in the air that even a dog could recognize as catastrophic. Everything I'd thought was a marriage that slowly went wrong was actually never real from the very first day. The proposal, the wedding, the vows. All of it built on top of a relationship she'd simply paused rather than ended, waiting, it seemed, for the right moment to decide I wasn't worth the trade anymore. I sat there staring at her. At this woman I genuinely believed I knew better than anyone on earth, and something strange happened inside me. The panic and heartbreak of the last week suddenly replaced by a strange, clarifying calm. I asked her the only question that still mattered. If Dale wasn't ready back then, and I made sense to marry, what changed? Why start again 18 months into our marriage instead of just staying with me quietly the way she'd apparently planned? Her jaw tightened, and for the first time all night, she looked genuinely cornered instead of performing cornered. Dale's father passed away last year, she said quietly. He inherited the auto dealership chain, the one his family's owned for 30 years. He finally had something real to offer. There it was, the true shape of everything, laid bare in one sentence. This was never about loneliness or emotional neglect or me working too much. It had never even really been about love, not for her. It was about upgrading the moment a better option became available, and I had simply been the reasonable, stable placeholder she'd married while waiting to see if Dale's life ever became worth leaving me for. I thought about Tommy taking her money every month, about Dale sitting at our wedding giving a toast about how perfect we were together, while already knowing what he and Rachel had been to each other, about every Sunday dinner, every holiday, every small kindness I'd shown my own brother while he quietly helped dismantle my marriage for a stipend. I thought about the 2 years of Thursdays, the hotel points probably accumulating on some rewards account, the email where she'd written that she loved Dale before she ever walked down the aisle toward me in a dress I'd cried seeing her in. I didn't scream. I didn't cry in front of her, not then. I stood up, walked to the hall closet, and got Biscuit's leash, because some decisions don't need speeches. They just need action. I told her I'd be staying at a hotel that night and that my lawyer would be contacting her by Monday regarding the trust fund details she'd apparently been hiding from me for 3 years of marriage, along with everything else that had come out tonight. She started to say something, some final attempt at softening the landing, and I simply closed the door behind me before she could finish it. The same door Dale had stood at not 2 hours earlier, holding a six-pack like nothing in the world was wrong. I called Tommy from the car, and when he answered, sounding cautious like he already somehow knew, I told him everything I now understood. The money, the silence, the 14 months of Sunday dinners built on his betrayal too. He didn't deny a single word. 6 months later, I'm divorced, living in a small apartment with Biscuit, who still occasionally scratches at doors like he's checking for danger that isn't there anymore. Rachel married Dale within the year, which somehow didn't even surprise me by that point. Tommy and I haven't spoken since that phone call, and some nights I still wonder how many other people around me are quietly keeping secrets that will eventually reshape my entire life without warning, the way that one basement trip for a whining dog reshaped mine.